When I retrieved my 6-year-old from her grandmother's estate, she didn't smile at me. She slid into the back seat, clutched her plastic toy camera, and mumbled, "Mommy, Nana promised bad things would happen if I showed you this." I'd been raising my daughter alone since my husband passed. Strict boundaries were how I kept my sanity. Looking back, those rigid rules also made me ignore the warning signs because I needed a safety net. My mother-in-law lived on a sprawling, isolated acreage and always treated me with cold disdain. Still, she was the only family my child had left on that side, so I tolerated brief afternoon visits. Never overnight, never alone. Then a massive ice storm knocked out the power grid, and the temperature plummeted. With no other options, I called my mother-in-law. She didn't hesitate. "Bring her over," she demanded. "It's about time you stopped hovering." I packed her weekend bag, including the cheap digital camera she took everywhere. I dropped her off with warm clothes and her favorite blankets. My mother-in-law blocked the doorway, refusing to let me inside. "I raised a child. I know how to keep one warm," she snapped. My daughter waved, thinking it was a grand adventure. When I returned to pick her up, the vibe was entirely wrong. The heavy iron gates were chained, and I had to honk repeatedly before she finally marched down the driveway to let us out. "She's in the kitchen," she grunted, avoiding my eyes. A sharp chemical smell clung to her clothes. My daughter was sitting at the island, unusually quiet, her camera strapped tightly around her neck. She didn't jump up to greet me. When I reached out to zip her coat, she shrank away slightly. Once we were strapped into the car, I asked, "Did you and Nana have fun?" She stared out the window silently. Then she unclipped the camera, turned the little digital screen toward me, and whispered her terrifying warning. I pulled over to look at the tiny pixelated image. It was blurry, taken through a dirty window, but unmistakable. It was an elderly woman, painfully thin, peering out from the locked greenhouse. "Nana said the sick people in the garden shed are dangerous," my daughter said quietly, "but the lady was just crying for water." My blood ran ice cold. Was it a misunderstanding? But my daughter's voice wasn't whimsical. It was shaking. I drove straight to a nearby diner, bought her a hot chocolate, and dialed emergency services. The operator took down the details, her voice shifting into a tense professional clip as she dispatched units. Panic set in. My mother-in-law had seen my daughter wandering near that greenhouse. If she realized the camera had photos, she might destroy the evidence or move those people before the police arrived. I couldn't just sit there. I told the waitress to watch my daughter for 5 minutes and sped back up the road. I parked and sprinted to the front door. My mother-in-law ripped it open, furious. "What now?" she hissed. I forced a confused smile. "I forgot her daily asthma medication on the counter." She narrowed her eyes. "I didn't see any medication." I pushed past her into the foyer. "Let me just check." I started opening drawers, buying time. She grabbed my arm, her grip shockingly strong. "Get out of my house." I looked her dead in the eye. "Not until I see what's in the greenhouse." Right then, the gravel driveway crunched under heavy tires. Flashing blue and red lights washed over the foyer walls. 2 troopers sprinted across the lawn, bypassing the house entirely, and heading straight for the back property. My mother-in-law let go of my arm, her face draining of all color. I stepped out onto the porch, my heart hammering. I couldn't see the greenhouse from the front, but the sounds painted a horrifying picture. First, a heavy metallic snap of bolt cutters. Then, a trooper yelling into his radio. After that, the sound of several people crying out at once. Finally, a booming command for immediate medical transport. An officer eventually walked up to the porch, looking completely sickened. "We've got 5 elderly adults locked in freezing conditions out there," he said grimly. She was cashing their social security checks. Paramedics swarmed the property, rolling stretchers across the frosted grass. My mother-in-law was escorted out in handcuffs. She never even glanced in my direction. Back at the diner, my daughter was drawing on a napkin. I sat across from her, my hands still shaking, realizing how close I came to leaving her in a house run by a monster. I pulled her into a massive hug and whispered, "The police helped the people in the garden. You saved them." She looked up, her little face serious, and said, "Nana was wrong. Bad things only happen when you keep secrets."